We're up to the third bracha of Bרכat HaMazon. Now, just a few introductory words. Today we'll speak just an introduction to the bracha. This bracha is very interesting. This bracha, we know we're mechuyev to make three brachas of Bרכat HaMazon on Midday Raisa. The first three brachas. Ha'toiv ha'meitav will speak later as Rabbanan. And the three brachas that we have to speak about is number one, Hazon, number two, Eretz Yisrael, which is Naidilcha, and ultimately the third bracha, which is about Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash, is Midday Raisa. Now the Gemara Brachas tells us that David was Mesakein, that we say Al Malchus Beis David, and Shlomo HaMelech, after the Beis HaMikdash was built, Shlomo Metikein Al Abayis HaGodel V'HaKadosh. So the Lavush points out that it must be that this third bracha developed over time. Why? Because he says it must be that they recited the third bracha before David HaMelech Malchus. If it's Midday Raisa, this bracha, then already from years back, from after they got the Torah, they must have been speaking about Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore he says it must be that there was already a nusach for this bracha being mispalel for the Malchus, mispalel for Yerushalayim, being mispalel for the Beis HaMikdash already prior. And that which the Gemara tells us, that David was misakein, this bracha, only means this nusach bracha of Al Malchus Beis David Mishichecha. And then Al Abayis HaGodel V'HaKadosh, that Shlomo HaMelech was misakein after we had the Beis HaMikdash. He says that is what they were misakein. The matbeya of the bracha, the nusach bracha, is what changed. And then he says, ultimately, it can't be that which we are mevarech today, that the bracha that we have today was the bracha they had back then. Why can't it be that it was the bracha they had back then? Because we ask Hashem to have mercy on us and bring back Malchus Beis David, Uvenei Yerushalayim, and we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to rebuild Yerushalayim and to bring back the Beis HaMikdash. And it can't be that during the reign of David and Shlomo HaMelech, when they had the Beis HaMikdash, they were asking to bring it back. He says it must be that they were mispalel for Shalvas Yerushalayim, for there to be continual peace in Yerushalayim at the time, and that continue having the Beis HaMikdash. But he says it can't be that they were asking for it to be rebuilt. So he says it's obvious that this bracha developed over this, we'll call the centuries, based on the needs of the time, and this bracha which we have now is the final nusach bracha, which was afterwards. He also points out very interestingly that the Medrash tells us in Shmuel, the Medrash Shachatov in Shmuel Perikid Gimel, the Lavush tells us that b'yom shenechlak Beis David, kafrei b'shloisha dvarim, when we lost the Malchus Beis David and the Beis HaMikdash, Klal Yisrael was kaifer in three things. Number one, they were kaifer in the Rebbeinu Shloim, they were kaifer in the Beis HaMikdash, and they were kaifer in Malchus Beis David. And we must be mispalel, the Lavush says, he brings the Medrash says, he says, in order for us to have back the Beis HaMikdash and the Malchus Beis David, we must be misvade, do tshuva on that which we deny those three things. And therefore, he says, here in the benching, we are mispalel for all three. We're mispalel for Malchus Shemayim, which we talk about in the bracha v'atoiv ha'meitav. He says we don't want to bunch it up with Malchus Beis David in this bracha, because if we did so, it would be comparing and bunching as if the two are the same. Now we know Chas v'Shalom, Malchus Shemayim and Malchus Beis David. Malchus Beis David doesn't compare anywhere to Malchus Shemayim, and therefore the Malchus Beis David and getting back Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash and Malchus Shemayim, we are mispal for all these three things every day in Bרכat HaMazon in order to correct that sin which those who left at the time of the Churban, they were kaifer, they denied those three things, Malchus Shemayim, Malchus Beis David, and the Beis HaMikdash. And interestingly, and we'll finish off with this, the Shibayile Haleket points out that therefore in Shemona Esrei we do the same as well. The Shibayile Haleket points out that every day we need to be mispalel for these three things in order to make sure that we are ready for the return of these three things, right? So he points out, and he says that he brings a pasuk in Divrei Hayamim that shows that we will crave for these three things. But then he points out that therefore in Tefillah we are maskir back to back to back these three things. He says the bracha of al tzadikim, we say Mishon Miftach tzadikim, is talking about Malchus Shemayim. The next bracha is Binyan Yerushalayim, V'lu Yerushalayim Ircha, is talking about getting back Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash. And finally, the next bracha is Semach David, is Malchus Beis David. That we mention these three things back to back as a way of us being misvada and doing tshuva and showing the Rebbeinu Shalom we're no longer kaifer in those three things and we're ready to have them back.